Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our fireworks Q&A live. My name is Paul Carganilla. I'm the Oxnard Police Department's Community Affairs Manager. We're coming at you live from beautiful downtown Oxnard on this beautiful Tuesday night with our beach weather here that we enjoy in the city. And we wanted to take this opportunity to get together and answer any questions that our community has regarding fireworks enforcement, as every year it seems like this is a very a topic that people get passionate about. And if anybody has any questions, we want to be here to answer them about our efforts or the city fire code, the just anything at all that's on your mind, any burning questions you might have, no pun intended, on the topic of fireworks in Oxnard. And we've put together a little panel here on this YouTube live stream. As you are watching and you have any questions, go ahead and feel free to drop them in the live YouTube chat, and I'll keep an eye on that and ask them as they come in. But I'd like to introduce everyone to our little gathering this evening. Joining us from the police department here in the building, Corporal Jonathan Martin and Officer Patrick Blanche. Corporal Martin is with our neighborhood policing team. They do a lot of the fireworks enforcement, as you know, through the months leading up to the 4th of July. And Officer Blanche is on our uncrewed aerial systems unit, or our drone unit, and they do a lot to help with the fireworks enforcement every year. So thank you two so much for being here.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah. Um, from the Oxnard Fire Department, I'd like to introduce Deputy Fire Marshal, Captain, Fire Investigator, a member of the Fire Prevention Bureau, Blair Martin. Hello, sir.
Hi, good evening.
Thanks so much for joining us. Which one of those is the most basic title for you?
Probably Captain.
Captain Blair Martin is
Yes,
joining
sir.
us tonight. Thank you so much. And from Oxnard Code Compliance, we are joined by Manager Andrew Dixon. Hello, everybody.
Hi, good evening. Thanks for having me.
Oh, thank you for being here. Now, we always say every year fireworks are illegal here in the city of Oxnard, even the ones that are deemed safe and sane. And there are a lot of reasons. So let's just kind of go around department by department and talk about what these reasons might be, starting with Corporal Martin from a police department standpoint. Why are fireworks illegal?
Absolutely. In the city of Oxnard, all fireworks are illegal. And first and foremost, that's because they're dangerous. Every year we have injuries sustained from people possessing, using fireworks. We've even had deaths here in the city of Oxnard that stemmed from the use of fireworks. On top of that, they cause emotional distress to our residents, to the pets. They're a noise nuisance, and not to mention they're also a fire danger. And when the fireworks are set off, they often land on rooftops or on dry vegetation, and they can start fires.
That's interesting that you mentioned that, because I had a community member say to me recently, when was the last time, come on now, when was the last time a house caught fire from fireworks, or we had a fire here in Oxnard because of fireworks? And Captain Martin, have there been any recent cases?
Yeah, absolutely. And just to reiterate what Corporal Martin said, bodily injury and property damage. Just recently, probably within the last month, I went out and investigated a fire that I attributed to illegal fireworks. It was in an alley, and it butted up right to the rear of someone's home and got into a detached garage and had several $1,000s worth of damage.
Wow. So it's not just a myth. It's not something you hear about that doesn't actually happen. We're hearing it from an Oxnard fire captain here tonight that it's happened, and you've responded recently, huh?
Absolutely.
Wow. And so, Manager Dixon, from a code compliance standpoint, why is, or how does code get involved in our fire prevention, our firework efforts here in the city?
Well, part of what code compliance does is we are the responsible for private property maintenance. When we have property owners that are not taking care of their weeds or their overgrown vegetation. That creates a hazard. And as we saw in Palisades this year, that can lead to devastating effects on the community. So we have been very proactive this year, reaching out to all of our property owners that own vacant parcels or have severely overgrown residential properties. We work with the city attorney on creating codes, and then we enforce those codes as well. Part of what we do with the fireworks enforcement, besides providing extra staffing on the nights leading up to the 4th and actually on the night of the 4th, is when we have a property that is seen shooting off fireworks, we have access to property records, tax rolls, and we can track down who the property owners are, and the citations can be issued directly to them. So even if it's a landlord, they can be cited for the actions of their tenants.
You mentioned a site. What are the fines that they might be facing?
The citations start at $250 for a safe and sane firework being allowed on your property. If it is a dangerous firework, anything that leaves the ground, it's a $1,000 fine. And you can be cited on multiple times. Last year, when I was out there working the night of the 4th, we responded to a property. The property owner was cited $2,000. We responded back 3 hours later. He was still shooting off fireworks. He had another supply. He got an additional $2,000 citation. So it was a very expensive night for him.
Wow. And so then going forward, when you have, is there any sort of register or list kept that has records of, hotspots or people, frequent offenders, if you will?
Yes. Yeah, we keep track year to year. Our regular locations, we have heat maps that the PD generates, calls for service that are coming in. And then, of course, the nights leading up to the 4th, we're out there, PD's out there, fire inspectors are out there patrolling after hours at night, responding to calls.
All right. Well, now that we know why this joint effort and how we're all kind of working together, I do want to invite anybody watching again. If you have any questions, go ahead and drop them in the live chat here on YouTube. And as long as we are having this conversation, we can address them. I do see a question that's not fireworks related. So I'll leave my email address. And if you want to send it to me after the live stream, feel free to do that. And I started my career with the Oxnard Police Department as a dispatcher. And I remember getting call after call after call from community members just fed up from hearing fireworks in their neighborhood. Now, Corporal Martin, as a member of the neighborhood policing team, you're on this team that actually you're essentially your beat coordinator. So you're responsible for neighborhoods within the city of Oxnard, specific ones to each beat coordinator. You handle the quality of life issues. From that level on the street, what do you hear from community members as far as how fireworks just disturb the peace or affect their quality of life?
Absolutely. I just had a conversation with one of my residents this afternoon about exactly that. A lot of these fireworks are being set off late at night, early morning hours, just last night even. So they're very disruptive just from a noise standpoint. This resident in particular, she's older, she's retired, so it's waking her household up late at night, but also her small pets, her dogs are also disturbed. So there's a nuisance that's imposed by these fireworks, and it's unfortunate.
And having worked in dispatch, I have heard many times, and running the social media for the department, the concern that if somebody calls the police, nothing is ever done, other than the citations that our code manager Dixon just mentioned. Can you talk about the challenges and the frustrations in being a member of the police department and it not really, or what are the challenges you face when somebody calls and says, hey, I hear fireworks or my neighbor's lighting off fireworks? What can you do?
It is challenging. Often those calls that we field, they hear fireworks in the distance, but we're not getting a specific address where the fireworks are being set off from, which can be frustrating. And that's why we're here to encourage residents to gather as much information and provide as much information to us as they can. We are fortunate that we have a social host ordinance, which I remember a time when we didn't have that. And just to clarify, the social host ordinance prohibits property owners from allowing people to possess and set off fireworks from their property. And it allows us to actually issue citations to property owners who allow that to happen. So that means we don't necessarily need to catch the property owner in the act of setting off fireworks themselves. Now, if we simply are able to trace back the house or the property to which the people engaged in setting off the fireworks are associated with, we often will then follow up and mail a citation to the property owner. Whether that's a landlord, short-term rental, whatever the case may be. So that has helped. But it can be difficult to determine which property that is when a single firework can generate, a half dozen phone calls for service, all of fireworks heard in the distance, but it's pretty difficult to pinpoint where exactly that is. We're also fortunate now that we have a drone unit that we're employing to assist us in locating these residents. And we also now have a fixed wing aircraft, which we're using this year to also help us pinpoint the exact residences where these fireworks are coming from.
Let me pick your mind about that, Officer Blanche. As a member of our drone unit, how are we using drones to help with fireworks enforcement?
So basically, when we receive calls of active areas and zones, we go into those locations in order to identify where the problems may or may not be, as well as to identify the specific people involved when it actually happens. Essentially, these drones that we have really great low light cameras, and we can actually pick up the video. And every time we fly, we record everything we do in order to make sure that we have a legitimate transparency. We make sure that we're over a public and a non-expected area of privacy, to make sure that we're doing our enforcement, to make sure that when these people are out in the streets and they're doing what they're doing, we can capture them in the act and follow them to the residence that they go in, and then we coordinate with officers in order to either try to contact them and issue the citation and or document that address, save that video, and then link it to having that citation mailed to the residence or the owner of that house. So.
All right, let's talk about, the 4th of July in itself is obviously a big deal as far as fireworks go, and people feel very they take a lot of ownership over the right, because it's linked to our American history. It's in the Star Spangled Banner, our national anthem, bombs bursting in air, and you're telling me it's illegal? For the reasons we've listed, the city's ordinance and just being respectful neighbors, we do encourage people to go to organized fireworks shows, fireworks events that you can attend, and not literally take it into your own hands and launch them in your driveway or your backyard. But let's talk about, so leading up to the 4th of July, from each of your department, what kind of efforts are being made in advance?
So we're actually, we have a database of all the locations which have created some of the problems in the past. And what we do, is we mail out letters to remind them of the importance and of the safety aspect, as well as the financial penalty involved in continuing these types of actions. When we receive the calls from people that are advising regarding fireworks, and we are able to locate and identify those residences, if for whatever reason we haven't been able to specifically identify them in the act, we actually will send them a letter to let them know that that they have been made to as a problem, and then just so they have an understanding. And then in that aspect, we use that data on those locations in order to remain in the area or to focus on specific areas which generate the most calls. What people don't realize is that Fireworks are an issue all over the states. It's not just Oxnard, and there's a lot of different things going on. And so what we're trying to do as a department is just to make sure that we let the community know that it's a safety concern as well as like an issue where it can cause lots of other things just from the aspect of peace and making sure that your animals are safe. Because if you don't like us, then at least like for the animals, just be respectful. There's people that I know that go to the vet and they get like medicine just for these days, and I don't think it's fair. There's active and live events that are put together in order for everyone to celebrate and be a part.
In addition to our patrol officers responding to calls for service surrounding fireworks, we've also organized directed enforcement details to target people violating the ordinances surrounding fireworks. This year alone, I think we have more than a half dozen of those details scheduled, some of which have already been conducted. And on those details, we partner with fire, with code compliance. The drone unit comes out to assist us, and we monitor calls for service, but we're also monitoring the hotline, tips coming in via the phone hotline, via the email, via the cell phone line that we provide, as well as what we're out there witnessing or hearing.
I listed all the ways you can report fireworks in the YouTube description of this video, but I will share it again before we end the stream tonight. Captain Martin, is there anything, I know obviously we're going to be very busy on the night of the 4th, but is there anything leading up to the 4th that the fire department is doing?
You know, the fire department will continue to respond to 911 calls for service in regards to any injuries, fires, potential fires that are going on out there. But like Corporal Martin said, we're going to be working with our partners at OPD and code compliance to go out and do half a dozen to a dozen enforcement firework little events that we do with my staff, specifically from the fire prevention unit, to go out and confiscate if we have to, cite if we have to, any fireworks that we see going off or people setting them off illegally.
And Manager Dixon, you mentioned our crime analysis hotspot map. Are there any other ways you're trying to head it off before the 4th?
Yeah, Paul, this year I sent a proactive letter out to all of our owners of short-term rentals. It was expressed in one of our community meetings leading up to the preparation for the 4th that a lot of the fireworks come in from outside the city. They come into our community, rent a short-term rental, and shoot off fireworks because it doesn't affect them, but it does affect our community. So I sent a notice to every short-term rental property owner, notifying them that they will be receiving citations if their tenants are found discharging fireworks within our city limits. So on top of going after making sure our properties are hardened and the weeds are cut down to try and reduce the fire hazard, that's another step we've taken this year, is being proactive on our short-term rental owners.
That's great. That's like a newish problem, it seems like, with the rise of Airbnbs and short-term rentals. So a lot of people, think, hey, it's the 4th of July. Everybody's off today. There's not much of a chance that the cops are going to be rolling by while I'm lighting fireworks in my driveway. What kind of personnel will be out there working the streets on the actual night of the 4th? Corporal Martin?
Again, we'd encourage everyone to go to city-sanctioned firework events at the harbor rather than choosing to set them off themselves. So in addition to our patrol services that will be out there on the night of the 4th, we have at least 4 specialized units from the police department that we work in that night. So the neighborhood policing team, as well as our homeless liaison unit and our special enforcement unit will all be out working enforcement the night of the 4th. And a lot of that will be directed towards fireworks and illegal fireworks. And we'll be assisted by members of the drone unit as well on the 4th.
And I heard we have a special aircraft that will be working that evening as well. Can you tell us about that?
Absolutely. So we have a fixed wing aircraft that is going to be assisting with the enforcement. And my limited understanding is that they have sophisticated software that is able to record, document, and pinpoint the residences from which illegal fireworks are being set off. And that's going to allow us to follow up with enforcement at a later date and time, which will likely be expensive citations issued by mail.
That's one thing we could touch on too, is like I have heard the argument that, I don't see citations being handed out on the night of the 4th. How are you citing these residents? Is that a code compliance question?
Yeah, I'll take that. Yeah, if you don't get a ticket on the 4th of July, but you were setting off fireworks, hold your breath. As we review the footage from the fixed wing aircraft and the drones, it does take us up to a couple weeks to pinpoint GPS, track down property owners. Like I said, we access tax rolls and get a citation off in the mail. So it may be the middle of July and you get a nice citation in the mail. So keep that in mind. Even if you don't get a ticket on the 4th, it doesn't mean you got away with it. And Paul, you mentioned you started in dispatch with the police department. Almost 2 decades ago, I started as an animal control officer for Oxnard Police Department. And July 5th was the day that we dreaded. It was our #1 busiest day of the year. The animal shelter is always at max capacity because of the 4th of July. And, I was one of those that on the 5th was having to do notifications to pet owners that their dog would not be coming home. So it's hard on our veterans. It's hard on those with PTSD, our elderly, and it's especially hard on the pets.
I did get the pleasure of visiting the Ventura County Animal Shelter last week and talking with the staff about the effects that it has on the dogs and the shelter and the personnel. They're at capacity or next to capacity always, but on the 5th, it's the hardest time. I'd encourage anybody to go out and look at any of the recent posts on the Ventura County Animal Shelter social media. They have a lot of important information on how to keep your dog safe, how to reclaim your dog if it gets out on the 4th, and lots of other valuable information over there. And I invite you to check that out. And Fire Captain Martin, are you guys, I imagine this is a dumb question, but I gotta ask, is it all hands on deck in the fire department as well on the 4th?
Yeah, all hands on deck. We're gonna have an extra fire engine on that evening specifically for the fireworks show over at the harbor. But then after that, we've got several units, fire units that'll be out patrolling, and we can issue those social host citations, but then also several of us with OPD in their marked vehicles doing and fireworks enforcement. So it's all hands on deck. I believe last year we collected something like 300 pounds of fireworks that we had to dispose of, and it's everybody joining arms and kind of trying to make sure that this problem doesn't get too out of control, even though it seems like it may or it does every year.
That's great. Now we mentioned how to report fireworks for anybody watching. Wow, that's my whole screen. I did not mean to do that, but you saw my notes. But here is the ways to report. We've got the fireworks officer's cell phone. We've got an email address that goes right to our fireworks neighborhood policing team. We have a new web form. This launched this year, and it is you can access it on our website or at oxnardpolice.info. You can call our non-emergency dispatch line or our voicemail hotline if you'd rather report it anonymously. Again, these are all in the notes of the YouTube video description here on the live stream. All right, I think it's time to get to any questions now that I made that whole window go away. One that I did see that was appropriate for this chat was for our police officers. When you get a fireworks call, how do you determine that it was not actually a shots fired situation?
So if we don't actually witness the firework itself, we're going to look for secondary confirmation. So whether that's video, surveillance video, drone video, we're going to look to other, substantiating factors as to what it is. If there's no evidence that it is in fact a firework, we would investigate that just like any other call for service. And I think we would be sure to rule out the fact that it was not a shots fired call and make sure that there aren't injured persons or other people needing our attention.
Very good. And one last call for any questions in the live chat. We've got a couple of minutes left. I think the person asking this question was doing it in a snarky manner, but I do want to hear from our officers about, in general, the different calls for service that you get called to. The question was fireworks what you were expecting to deal with when you signed up to be a police officer? But can you speak to just in general, all of the different roles that a police officer plays and why this falls into the enforcement that we actually have to do every year?
So in general, with the things that we commonly deal with, whether it's an assault or like a theft or a family dispute or domestic or maybe unhoused people being in the area, people using drugs or drinking and driving, and people being spotted on the roadway causing safety issues. We deal with all those aspects and many more. The main issue with the fireworks is that when people are doing these, we also are allocating the resources in order to try to identify whether or not it may or may not be shots fired, or where the fireworks are coming from, in order to alleviate some of the community's complaints as well as uneasiness. What that in turn does is it makes it to where it's harder for us to have those resources available for those other crimes and those other things that need assistance for. And that's pretty important. And I don't mean to seem selfish, but I feel like our resources could be used in order to help people in general. And although fireworks are an important issue and it makes people uncomfortable, as well as it's super dangerous, we, in this particular area of the year, it causes us to allocate resources where resources could be used better. And I didn't think that this would be one of the things that I would be doing when I applied to become an officer or live out this career. But it's just one of the things that any job has is there's different things that come up that you have to deal with, and changes that come along the way. And by doing as much as you can, or signing up to a position where that's what you're there to do, is to help the community, it's not really that big of a deal, or like oh my God, I can't believe I have to deal with this. This is dumb. It's just part of the gig. And like after you have understood that and gone through all the training, you understand that your job is to make sure that everyone is safe and to be able to help people. And if that has to do with making sure that fireworks enforcement is a safety concern and dealt with properly, then that's what I'm here to do.
Love it. Well, we encourage everybody once again to celebrate safely. Of course, if Officer Blanche is also on our traffic unit, if you're celebrating on the 4th, make sure you have a designated driver or use a ride share to get home. And we want everybody to celebrate, but celebrate responsibly. Again, to address this last minute question that dropped in, why doesn't the city have sites and times where you can set off fireworks legally? we encourage you to go to those public events that are organized by people who are professionals, and we can all celebrate together and stay safe. And I want to thank everybody here on the panel tonight for the information and for sharing your wisdom in our efforts with the city. And I want to thank everybody who tuned in live and everybody watching after the fact. And we wish you all a very happy, healthy, safe, responsible 4th of July. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.